So I'm here as Sam's wife, she's down here, Alfie's mum, to tell our story. I'll share some background to how we got to this moment here, and I'll highlight places in our bereavement journey where we were faced with choices and the choices that we made, and those am I allowed moments. So Sam and I met in our mid-20s, we decided that we didn't want children, and we fell happily into the life of fun and travel and vegan waffles. We had children in our lives, and we liked handing them back. However, as age 40 started to approach for both of us, we noticed a shift. So daily life with kids started to have appeal. My womb started to fizz a little anytime I saw Sam holding a baby. And having children was no longer something that we could do one day. We started to use the phrase, it's now or never. And I started to notice pregnant women everywhere I went. So we started to explore options. This was us in July 2017. We had just been to a fertility fair in London, and we had blood tests to check our ovarian reserves. Sam, although 2 years older than me, had a more plentiful egg supply than me. That and her desire to have a genetic link with our baby and my inclination to carry meant that we eventually decided that the right way for us to have a family was shared motherhood. Just raise your hand if you have heard of shared motherhood before. Oh, cool, okay. Because many midwives haven't, and I think it's really important if you're there caring for a family, knowing how they made their family. So the right way for us to have a family was to use Sam's eggs and my womb. And with our ages, we knew that we would be lucky if we got successful, but we were raring to give it a go. This was the vast quantity of hormonal medication that we had to make room in our fridge for. So this arrived with us from our fertility clinic. We ordered sperm, which was couriered to our home from the sperm bank, and we then started Sam on her daily injections. The hormones were really hard going, so it was really a very physical and emotional journey for both of us. The day of Sam's egg collection arrived, just 4 days before her 41st birthday, and the fertilisation was a great success. This was us a few weeks later receiving a phone call from our embryologist. So because of Sam's age, we had opted to do pre-implantation genetic screening. So we were screening our embryos to see if they were chromosomally balanced, and this was us hearing that 2 of them were, which was fantastic for our age group. So we'd beaten the statistics, we couldn't quite believe our luck. We then started to get me ready for the embryo transfer. So I had hormones by tablets, by patches, and pessaries up any hole that you could imagine. Here I am a few days before the transfer. This is with our best friend Chu, who you will be seeing a lot. She's a doctor and my best friend. And this was me telling her that this would hopefully be the last time that she ever saw me not pregnant, not a mum. We got cards in the post wishing us well. Why am I telling you all of this by background? It's because by the time we got to the pregnancy test even, we had already run a marathon, it had felt like. There had been so many steps, so many milestones, so many waiting and hoping and planning moments. And it had worked. And I had no idea until I saw this pregnancy test how desperately and deeply I wanted to be pregnant, how much I wanted to be a mum with a baby. And our friends and family, there's Chu again, were over the moon. And as it was an IVF pregnancy, this is another thing. We had shared every step with our nearest and dearest, so they were with us on that journey. They were there for every milestone, so it was a culmination of the journey that they had been on with us as well. We announced our pregnancy early, so this was what we shared on Facebook at 7 weeks. Some people would say, oh my gosh, don't share anything at 7 weeks, you know, it's dangerous. My sister had died at 39 weeks. She was stillborn at 39 weeks. So I already knew that there was no safe point in any pregnancy where you were guaranteed that a baby was going to make it home. And we wanted just to enjoy every minute that we could. So we had just seen our baby's heartbeat for the first time. After this, we had an early reassurance scan at our IVF clinic. And again, with it being an IVF pregnancy, we knew the exact moment that the embryo went in. So we had been attached to this little tiny thing from the very beginning. And the attachment grew week by week. This is my beloved grandma. Ah! She had, well, she still does have dementia. She didn't quite understand what was going on, but she kind of got the hang that there was a baby in there. And the one thing she asked me was, do you take them everywhere you go? We had a private gender scan at 16 weeks, and our baby was loud and proud in showing us that we were having a boy. He just literally went, hello. No doubt there. Others were also pretty excited that we were having a son. Yes, Chew again. And Christmas was coming. Our son was 40% baked. My mum got the family heirloom Moses basket out of the loft. I slept in that basket as a baby, and she passed it down to us. We also started to accumulate vast quantities of baby clothes. One of my very favourite aspects of being pregnant was how Sam responded to my belly. So to the kicks and to me carrying our precious cargo. It was bonding beyond anything that I had ever experienced, and we had been together 15 years by this point. She was absolutely ready to be a mama elf. One thing you'll come to know is that Sam loves Christmas, like obsessively loves Christmas. In Salford yesterday, we actually went to the Christmas market, and she got into like the Christmas, like the Santa Claus thing. I can show you a picture of that later. It's quite amusing. So it was our first Christmas as the three of us. And yeah, Sam loves Christmas. So our friends call her Santa, very convenient name for that. And so this was a festive message that we texted everyone at Christmas, Merry Christmas from Family GB. And as we put up the tree, we talked with amazement about the fact that this time next year, as in right now, we would be doing all this with our 6-month-old in our arms. And we were just so excited about the year ahead. So there's one missing. It was of New Year's Eve. So does anyone here do the first footing tradition at New Year's Eve? Yes. Okay, so you leave the house with the year that's just, well, we leave the house, Sam leaves the house with the year that's just gone by, and comes back in bringing what you want to bring for the new year. So Sam carried in a woolen hat, which was the picture, which said Jingle All the Way on it. So because of her love of Christmas, when we were talking with our embryologist at the fertility clinic, we had said, do you play music ever over the embryos to make them develop? And she said, yeah, sure. So we said, could we please have a Christmas song? And she said, but it's July. And we said, we understand that, but these children need to get used to Christmas now if they're going to live with Sam and with me. So she said, sure, that's fine. And she said, what song would you like? And we said, Jingle Bells. So our baby from the beginning, from the very moment that he went in, was called Jingle. So the hat that Sam brought in said Jingle All the Way on it. So by 19 weeks, I had certainly popped. I was in the prime of my pregnancy, firmly in the second trimester and approaching the halfway point. And as the new year began, I made my birth plan, cutting out icons from the Positive Birth book. Please, can I see a show of hands for anyone who had read the Positive Birth book? Cool, I think there's another one of hers down here, that Birth Like a Feminist. It was in that book that I really started to learn about choice and the concept of informed consent in birthing. And we went to birth preparation classes, yes, even though it was still second trimester. I just felt like I wanted to be ready early, and I was starting to become not fearful anymore. I was actually looking forward to labour. So although we were still in the second trimester, I was cutting out things from the book on things like who was going to cut the cord and whether I wanted active management of the third stage. Our 20-week scan, like all the others, went perfectly. He was described by the sonographer as a perfect little baby. No anomalies were spotted. It looked like he was smiling at us. Can anyone see the smile in that picture? We were certainly smiling, and it felt like we'd made it past the final hurdle. There were no other scans due, and all my midwives told me that everything was going so well, there were no risk factors, I should just relax and enjoy the pregnancy. The one thing that niggled me throughout the whole pregnancy was that I felt big. So here I was at 21 weeks. Does that look big to you? This was my belly at 21 weeks. So I felt like I was about to explode. Everybody, and I mean everybody, reassured me. So my best friend, who you've seen, Chew, the neonatal doctor, the midwives who scanned me, my mum, who carried 5 babies to term. So maybe this was just what pregnancy felt like, I told myself. But was it really normal to feel like you were carrying a massive balloon that was about to burst? And at exactly 22 weeks, I woke to find that my pyjama bottoms were wet. So instantly, my heart sped up. I dabbed, and the tissue came back with some brown blood. I phoned the maternity assessment unit, and they asked me to come in. I was expecting her to say, "Oh no, that's fine, that's what always happens at 22 weeks. So I was quite shocked when she said, "Please come in." The obstetrician thought that it could be the spontaneous rupture of my membranes, but she examined me and found that my cervix was closed, and she sent me home. The next day at home, we took this photo. So our son was still kicking, I had been checked and sent home, so surely everything was fine. But my pregnancy now felt precarious. Our future together as a family was hanging in the balance. The following day, back at the maternity hospital, I had a specialist scan, and I was diagnosed with polyhydramnios. Can I just see if you are all... So polyhydramnios, excessive amniotic fluid. To be diagnosed with polyhydramnios, your AFI, your amniotic fluid index, needs to be 24 centimetres. So they're measuring the pool of amniotic fluid, and mine was 41 centimetres. So it was acute and it was severe. I was admitted to hospital, and when I woke up the next morning, my waters broke. I was 22 weeks and 3 days, and I was in labour. My membranes had ruptured, and my amniotic fluid had gushed out in the hospital bathroom in an avalanche. We were rushed to the delivery unit, so this is now the delivery room, and we were told that at this gestation, just days before the limit of viability, there would be no attempt made to resuscitate our baby. There was no issue of choice here. There was simply the fact that I was in labour, I was going to have to give birth, and our son would not survive. We were told that our son would arrive within minutes. It actually took 54 hours as he was transverse breech. So although he was small, his position meant that it was not an easy or a speedy delivery. In terms of choice, I chose gas and air, and also codeine for pain management. I asked to be moved to a room with a birthing pool, but I was told that it was inadvisable because of the risk of infection. No obstetrician or midwife offered augmentation of labour, and I was really relieved about that. We needed the time that it took. Sam didn't leave my side, so I obviously had a bed. She rested at my insistence as best she could, when I did, in a chair. Giving the non-birthing partner access to a bed is a basic way of optimising their bereavement experience during and after the birth of their child. And all of these photos that you'll see in the labour ward were taken by Chu, my best friend, who came up from Watford to be with us for the whole 3 days of birthing and stayed with us for 8 days beyond. And there was never, thankfully, the question of either of them being allowed to be with me at all times. We had a private room. So our son arrived at 2:43 p.m. on the 17th of January 2019. He came out arm first, like Superman, followed by his hip, onto the floor below me. This, as you'll see from the clock at the back, is 2 minutes later. My wife and I, hearing the neonatal doctor confirm that our son showed no signs of life. He had died during labour. We had been given the option of listening into his heartbeat during labour, but we chose not to. We knew that the outcome was guaranteed, so we didn't feel that we needed to know the exact moment that he died. I had seen the moment of delivering a baby represented beautifully in positive birth videos on YouTube. I had never seen someone give birth to a dead baby. At first, my baby looked completely foreign to me. He wasn't what I had imagined. His skin colour was different from what I had imagined. He wasn't what I thought I was growing. It just felt like some sick mistake. My body was so utterly relieved to no longer be in labour and to no longer be that big as well, but I had no idea how to process what my eyes were seeing. As per our birth plan, Sam cut the cord. It was a bit chewier than you were expecting. I was given lots of choices at this point, to look at him, to hold him, but I couldn't. The only choice I wanted to make at this moment in time was for none of this horrific nightmare to have happened. But the ordeal wasn't over because I had an adherent placenta. So I consented to an injection and then later to a tablet, but it still had no inclination at all to come out. So as midnight approached, I was prepared for theatre. I was told that nobody would be allowed to come with me, and it seemed that I had no choice about this, until I remembered the positive birth book and the concept of informed consent. And so in a flash of genius, I said to the obstetrician, if one of them, as in my best friend or my wife, if one of them can't come, then I withdraw my consent to the procedure. As soon as I said that, the obstetrician allowed my best friend to scrub up and come with me. This picture looks happy because it's the picture we sent to my mum afterwards to show her that I was still alive. It is absolutely unacceptable that a woman who has just given birth to a dead baby should have to go to theatre to have her spine injected without a safe and familiar person with her, whether that's a partner, a friend, or a family member. Hospitals must allow us the choice of a safe companion. And thankfully, the procedure in theatre went fine, although the placenta was so adherent, it came out piecemeal. And heads up, there is a photo of that placenta coming up. Just want to tell you a little story about this. So I had read lots of people say that they ate their placenta, and I had a plan when I was thinking through my birth that, presuming that Alfie was going to come at full term, I had a friend on standby who was going to come to the hospital, take the placenta home, freeze it, and I was going to have it in smoothies or something. When I saw my placenta, there is nothing that was further from my mind than eating my placenta. So the midwife in charge that night honoured my wish to see my placenta. Like I said, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. We chose to give consent to every test, every investigation, and a full post-mortem because we wanted to know everything we could possibly find out about our son's death. We had absolutely no idea at this point why I had gone into labour at 22 and 3. However, the midwife, who is kindly showing us here the placenta, she failed to take a cytogenetic sample from the placenta. Our son is thought to have had a very, very rare, like literally 1 in a million, genetic condition that was causing the polyhydramnios. But because she failed to follow hospital protocol, we do not know, and we may never know, why he actually died. So it's incredibly important in our hospital, because we've done a lot of work with them afterwards. They now have this new kind of way of looking at the placenta as gold. You know, this is gold, and they've got different checklists in place to make sure that one midwife can't make an error like that, because the implications of that in terms of choice for us with future family making have been huge. The other area where a midwife didn't follow protocol, or where protocol was inadequate, was the issue of my milk supply. So I wasn't offered lactation suppression tablets, so my milk came in. Not saying that I would necessarily have taken them, but I wasn't offered that choice. So bereaved mothers should be given the choice of suppressing their lactation, if that's what they want, or donating their milk, as I know someone in the room has experience with, or expressing their milk and using it to make breast milk jewellery, like this ring depicts here. There was no discussion, there was no information or choice given around this really important and emotive area. One thing you might not realise is how much joy there can be following the birth of your baby. So we were still meeting our baby. We had waited for this moment for months and months. And we held little Alfie in our arms, the product of our love, and we gazed at his adorable snub nose and his perfectly formed little fingers and toes. We felt unconditional parental love rushing up to overwhelm and bond us. And we were really grateful that we had the choice for him to stay with us in the delivery room, thanks to the cold cot. So it preserved his body, giving us more time with him before he had to go down to the mortuary. We were not, however, given clear guidance on exactly how long we could keep him for, so as not to compromise the post-mortem. It felt like we were plucking a number of hours out of the air. Like, how long would you like to keep your son for? Well, if we keep him for this many more hours, does that mean you're not going to get the results from the post-mortem? Nobody was able to give us answers. We met later, after all of this, after the post-mortem. We met with the head of pathology at our maternity hospital. She doesn't know. So there simply hasn't been enough research into this. I think it's so, so important because we need medical-based knowledge so that parents can make informed choices about how long they spend with their baby. This is the next morning. All the emotions so raw and my body feeling so battered. And we were so grateful to be able to stay in this room, not to have to move anywhere. In Cambridge, where we live, there is no bereavement suite. Nick was talking earlier about bereavement suites. We don't have that in Cambridge. So we were on the regular delivery ward. We hid away behind the door, and Sam found it very hard when she went to get a cup of tea. She found it very, very hard walking out along the corridor where there was the air of celebration and the cries of newborn babies and pictures of all the living babies up on the pinboard. We were given lots of choices this day, and we chose to do memory making with the bereavement midwife. We also chose to have a volunteer photographer from the charity Remember My Baby, and the next few photos are all thanks to having that option available. I've recently spoken to a friend of mine who her baby came at 23 weeks, and Remember My Baby didn't go out to her, and that's something that she massively regrets, that she doesn't have these kind of photos from her time with her daughter. Looking at these images, when I put them into the slide deck, they really remind me of the smell of Alfie. It's incredibly powerful to me. Anytime I smell rust, I think of him. I know it's the smell of blood, I know it's the smell of death, but it's the smell of my son. Something I feel really, really strongly about is, although he came at 22 and 5, everyone, every obstetrician, every midwife at the hospital referred to it as a stillbirth. And for me, that was so important. I think if somebody had used the phrase although if a midwife had used the phrase miscarriage, although it's legally the phrase to use, I think I would have found that to be just not, it wouldn't have matched my experience. I didn't experience having a miscarriage. I experienced giving birth and my baby being still. It's so important in bereavement care that partners are included equally. Their baby has just died too. It doesn't matter who the baby came out of, it's their child who they're saying hello and goodbye to in the same moment. And Sam and I, we both felt very respected by everybody who cared for us, and we felt that Sam was equally included too. The bereavement midwife, we had very, very, very good bereavement midwives. One of them, who was with us, encouraged us not to see Alfie after the post-mortem. She said that it would be distressing because he would have deteriorated. But I knew that I had to. Because here in these photos, you can see how beautifully presented he is. He's swaddled, we could see his hands, his feet. But I really wanted to see all of him. I couldn't have him cremated without having seen his bum, his back, the crooks of his arms. As his mum, I wanted him uncensored. I didn't want things to be sanitized. I didn't want things to be beautifully presented beyond this point. I wanted to make decisions about what was right for me as his mother. And that might be different from other parents. So I chose to see him again after the post-mortem, a few weeks after this picture. I'm so, so grateful for the time that we had with him. He stayed in our room for the rest of the day that he was born, and into the evening the following day, when he was then finally taken down to the mortuary. At our insistence, he was taken by the bereavement midwife and by another midwife who knew him as well. Because at first we were told that a porter would take him, and that was unacceptable to us. Like Nick was saying earlier, you know, how the baby is taken down to the mortuary as part of that parent's experience. He was taken down in the Moses basket by two people who had loved and cared for him. We wanted to choose who carried our son at all times if we couldn't. Here we are the next day in the chapel of rest, deep in the basement of the hospital. So I had been discharged home, and we arranged with the mortuary that we could come back to visit. And they brought him out of the morgue for us to spend time together. These are some of the most precious moments of my entire life. We sat with him, we talked to him, we read him a bedtime story, spot the Christmas theme. We sang him a lullaby, and I stroked his cool, smooth forehead. If that picture had been in the slideshow, you'll see that hat is the Jingle All the Way hat that Sam took out on first fitting the New Year's Eve, just a couple of weeks before. So if I had to replay an hour from my life, if I scan back over 40 years of being on this planet, this is the 1 hour that I would choose, because I'm there with my wife, with our son, and we're together being mums. And it was this photo of us as a family of 3 in the Chapel of Rest that we laid on his coffin. The plaque bore his full name, Alfred, named after my grandfather, who was the husband of the lady you saw kissing my tummy. Alfred Samuel Jingle Gordon Barnes. Sam's mum always calls him Alfie Jingles. The hospital very generously arranged the funeral. We didn't have to make those calls, but we decided all the details. And they felt like really important choices. Burial or cremation, which songs, which words, which casket, which plaque. And we carried his coffin into the crematorium. These were our last moments of carrying our son in physical form. We are so, so grateful to have met Alfie and to have known him so intimately. We are also incredibly grateful for the professionals and the friends who helped us to feel that we made choices, even in the face of our one big choice being taken from us. The difference that midwives, obstetricians can make is unspeakable. The way that you can be there for families, I just honour each of you for what you can do with families in your care. We feel that overall we were very, very much allowed to birth him, love him, cherish him, and remember him the way that we wanted to. We treasure the moments that we spent together and the memories that we have. As he was such a strong kicker in the womb, we describe his life like this: swim, 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 sleep. Our son died, but he made us parents. And for that, we are so joyful and so proud. Thank you for listening to our story, and questions are most certainly allowed and welcomed.
I would just like to say how fantastically you delivered your presentation, all the way through. You was just being in with pride. It was such a wonderful thing to watch.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Is Sam going to get up?
Yeah, come on, Sam. Come and join us.
Been requested.
Can I just say, Corrina, that what you said about a particular test that wasn't undertaken, how you seem to have unbelievably coped with that without sort of having such deep down anger about the system of your organisation. I think it's absolutely commendable.
Thank you.
And it's inspiration, your stories, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. We really worked with the hospital afterwards to really, like Jackie was saying, I think, was it Jackie or Nick, I think, in the beginning, about not making it about blame, but about how can we do things better. So that poor, that midwife who didn't take that sample, she probably feels so bad about that because she knows the impact that would have had on us. So if we can improve the system so that the system can support midwives to make really, to follow protocol and to do well, then yeah, we're happy for that.
I'm just really, I'm really disappointed in Cambridge not having a bereavement suite. And I think what makes it worse for me is the fact that the chief midwife of England lives in Cambridge.
Oh wow!
And she is an awesome leader of maternity. She's absolutely, and another very senior, awesome leader. who lives there too, is Professor Leslie Page. Everybody knows Leslie Page, ex-president of the Royal College of Midwives. And I just really, so I'm actually going to make a comment. I'm actually going to speak. I'm not promising anything will happen, but I'm going to actually make a comment to them that I'm really disappointed. I mean, I think there should be a bereavement suite in every single maternity centre in all of the UK. It's the least we can do.
Thank
It's
you.
the least, so.
Yeah, I think for Sam to have been able, because our original plan was to birth in the midwifery-led birth centre.
It was a great plan.
And we've seen it, and there's this lovely big birthing pool, and there's a lovely big double bed.
Like a spa.
Yeah. And so the fact that, not even to have a bed that she could sleep in, we were in hospital for 6 days, so she sat in a chair for 6 days.
And, we were seeing lots of midwives, you know how it goes, like we got, I think, through all of them. So they knew that I was there, they knew what my experience was. So there was plenty of opportunities for different people to make an offering of some kind. I didn't necessarily need a deluxe king size in there. But even a blow-up bed or something that wouldn't be in the way of the care giving for Corrina would have been handy.
So that you didn't have to go out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that journey also, the journey out of the delivery room, we had to go the exact same, we had to go through the delivery room, back through the ward where I'd been initially. You kind of almost want like a back door, but just to have it be separate somehow from this is the normal pathway.
Yeah, or to perhaps even as well be warned, or to be reminded, you've gone through so much, you're not really thinking about my exit and about how that might impact me. So just for someone to say, oh, by the way, you're going to have to go back the way you came, that, might be a bit different. Yeah. It was kind of just, at the end when we left as well, we kind of just like left to it, weren't we? It's like, bye. And we were left to leave the room and then leave, and there was no kind of close to it really.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I think you'll find that a lot of the bereavement suites are actually, you've got to go through the labour ward to get to them and to leave afterwards.
Yeah.
That's such a shame that you think you'd have a separate. When you go into hospital, you expect to leave with your baby, so you plan that in your head, that exit out of the hospital, and it's a shame that you have to do that exit the same as people are, and it's just a shame that you've not got that back door or that extra support if it's wanted for you to leave the hospital.
One thing that you guys can do is take from this moment and go, if you're looking after a family, walk with them to the exit. When we were being transferred from intensive care to the children's ward with Ben, they cleared the path. They cleared the path and made sure nobody was going to be in our way and we weren't looking at anybody. You guys have the power to do that. You guys can just take that extra moment to go, right, we've got this family, these family are leaving in the worst situation possible. We can give them that last extra minute of help by, we're going to walk you to the door and make sure that no other baby is in that pathway whilst we do. We're just going to wait there, we're just going to clear the way for you and give them that space and honour them with that respect. That's something that you can do, and it's a really simple thing that you can do.
I think it was a lot of those kind of things were dependent on which midwife you had. So if we'd had the midwife that, when we left, the midwife that was actually there to help you deliver Alfie, she probably would have done that because that's just her character and she would have thought about it. And whereas the midwife that was there when we left hadn't got the same approach or personality, and so she just didn't offer that. So there's so many opportunities for you just to do the thing that feels right for you. Like you've said before about the thing that you would want for someone that you love to experience. And, it only takes a few minutes, some of those things, but it's amazing the impact that they can have. So. And
again, I was talking with my friend that I mentioned who had lost her baby at 23 weeks, and she said that holding her daughter, so there were midwives, around her, but she didn't know how to hold a baby that small and without tearing the skin. She didn't know how to do that. But as a midwife, you would help a mother latch a baby and hold a baby and change a baby's nappy and all of that. So it's the same if you've got a smaller baby or a dead baby, you can help them to learn how to hold them or manage that.
Sometimes they're not taught that
Oh, 100%,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is why Beyond B is so...
She'll-
Absolutely.
She knows, she'll tell you. She's got the thing.
100% agree, yeah. Yeah, bless you, like, you're just going in completely blind as well, yeah. Yeah.
It's something changing it slightly that I felt challenged about for a really long time. Where I've trained, most of the women that I've looked after weren't necessarily inclined to seek things out, to read the positive birth book, to make decisions about their pregnancy, to empower themselves with information. So when as a midwife, I'm going into a continuity role, so I'm very excited that I will have the time to give to my women. But if you've got a 10-minute appointment, or 20 minutes if you're lucky, antenatally, a few times, have you got any tips as to how you can encourage women to seek this out for themselves, to make decisions? Obviously, I want to empower women with, in this context or in any context, to know that they are allowed to do what they want to do, and to know that they are allowed to, you know, have decline things or accept things or use a pool or you know, be on the floor or on the bed or whatever.
For me, it's about changing the culture of people knowing that you can go into labour, like proper labour, much earlier than you might think you can. And so the fact that I had been to these birth preparation classes and watched the videos, when they told me you're going now to deliver your baby, I was like, right, okay, I'm into like labour mode, I know what to do mode. Whereas again, my friend hadn't obviously like looked at anything, because people don't, because NCT classes start at 30 weeks or whatever. She didn't have a clue what was going on and what was happening to her body. So I think if we can just like shift the culture to, as soon as you're pregnant, you know, beyond a certain point, you will have to give birth. Doesn't matter if that baby lives or dies, you will have to birth your baby.
That's really scary for a woman to hear. And I understand why those things don't get said, but they need to be said. So empowering a woman to give birth at all in any way, whether the baby comes out or however, you know, alive or not, or with struggles, it's kind of somehow finding a way to say to them, you know, you might not go to full term. You might have to, you know, you might not want to say it like this, but you might have to give birth to a baby that's died. But giving birth is giving birth, and you know, you have to face that reality. People just don't like talking about it, and I understand. I mean, we've been to meetings where we did the positive. We've been to positive birth meetings, and Corrina's very good at front loading, so she's a learner, so she wants to get all the information very early on. And then we went back after Alfie had died to share the positive birth story, because as you can see, even though it's incredibly sad, it's also very joyful, and the birth itself was extremely positive. And Corrina she's a warrior, as you saw. She did amazingly. But then we were actually asked, having been there and telling Alfie's story as this positive birth, we got an email saying, we've actually, someone in the group has contacted us to say that they were uncomfortable with your story, and we don't want you to come back because you're scaring the pregnant women that their babies might die, / you're contagious, / clearly every baby lives apart from ours, so nobody else needs to be prepared. So that was quite an interesting situation. So this early preparation we're really big advocates of, and I understand people are scared, but it does happen. So, yeah.
So I suppose my question was, how do you think we could better, not necessarily just prepare women for the possibility of having to go through this, but also to know that they are allowed to do whatever they want, whether it's a full-term birth or a preterm birth or in any aspect of their care. How can we, with the limited time and resources that we have, let them know that actually we can't force them to do anything?
I think for me there was one line in the positive birth book actually that stuck with me, which was something around it's your human right as the woman, as the birthing mother. Your baby has no rights at that point until they're out and alive. They have no rights. So nobody can do anything to you, even if they say to you, your baby will die if you don't do X. You, as the pregnant woman, can still refuse that. And there was something about that like you have complete legal right over your, I think, bodily autonomy. You have complete right over your body. Maybe some sort of line around that, like we can't do anything to you without your consent. You could walk out of the hospital. We can't do anything to you. There's something about shifting the power dynamic, isn't there? To
my experience is a lot of women don't get that.
No, they don't. No, I didn't get that until
particularly if they're from a culture where actually that's been suppressed and they're not encouraged to make decisions
about their own
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to
Yeah.
kind of switch.
Absolutely. I love that you're asking that question.
I
I
do.
love that that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
There's a question.
Was you given options and clear choices regarding because you were 22 plus 3?
Yeah.
I know that you said that you referred to it as a stillbirth and things like that, and that made you feel valued. But what were your options afterwards? Because my cousin lost a baby at 20. This was like less than 10 years ago, at about just under 24 weeks, and they were basically told you can take the baby. The words that we used was you can take the baby and dispose of it how you like, or we can get rid of the baby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were lucky they had land, so they could actually bury the baby. They built an orchard around him. But that was there. He wasn't given clear options, clear pathways, clear support. Has that changed, or?
Well, it was never even an option in our mind. Like we were led by them and how they, and I think we just have a very, very good bereavement midwifery team at Cambridge. And I think we had 2 really good midwives as well at various. We had lots of midwives, but we had 2 really good ones who kind of got it. And we were kind of led by them. They always, called him a baby and called him Alfie and offered us things, and they started to talk to us. My second day of labour, the bereavement midwives came in between contractions to talk to me about memory making and funeral arrangements. And we were like, what? Like, we had to decide it then because they had to book the Remember My Baby photographer to come out. So I think if you know what's available in your area, and you know what your hospital does or what your trust does, then you can lead them, because they won't know probably what they can do. And in Cambridge there's no distinction in terms of what they do funeral wise if your baby's under 24 weeks. The one thing we didn't get was an official birth and death certificate, but our hospital does acknowledgement of life certificates, which is framed on our wall and means the world to us. So that definitely making it as much, even if the legal line is there, making it as much like it's over 24 weeks for us.
That's why they struggled. They didn't get an official birth or death certificate.
Yeah.
So unless you've got that support there,
Yeah.
you can't actually just go and get a normal funeral arrangement or a normal memorial arrangement even.
We could in Cambridge, I don't know, you, Jackie?
I mean, that might change, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, and then we need to- and then we need to-
experience of it.
There's kind of work going on at this point in time to actually make sure, to make sure that the parents are offered a certificate which is legal. They may not want it, and Zoe Clark-Coates is leading that work up with Sam Clark, the midwife in the Midlands. And I think it's all on hold now because of the, they've done an awful lot of work. It's kind of ready, I think, to go through Parliament and such, but obviously on hold because of Purdah, because of the election. So when that will actually happen, but they're battling away behind the scenes doing that work now, so I think it will be probably next year when we see something.
I'm aware of time. Do you want to? Oh, go on.
Can I say one more thing? Thanks. About your point, it's really hard, but try not to be scared of offering the things that are available. Yeah. I mean, walking into a room where this is happening, or this has just happened, and you're in this scene, I don't know what that feels like for you. I can imagine, you wanting to respect the privacy and the overwhelm of everything that's happened. But if you don't offer us those things in those moments, we don't know to ask for them. It's not on our mind to consider that this is the only few hours we've got to make memories that we literally have to last us, hopefully in the next 60 years plus. So it's hard for you to do, but be aware of everything in your arsenal of what you can offer, and then keep offering. And sometimes we'll change our minds. Sometimes we'll be offered something and we don't feel like it in that moment because it's just too soon, but maybe a few hours later somehow sort of readdress it, because you might want those memories then.
Our friend who I mentioned, the midwives had dressed her baby daughter for her in the outfit that she'd brought in, so she knew she was going into labour. So they dressed her in the outfit, and then the outfit was blood soaked by the end of the baby being in that experience. And so the bereavement midwife said, "Would you like me to put this? I can put this aside. You can take it home." And she said, "No, I don't want that. It's blood stain. No, I don't want that." The bereavement midwife just left it on the side in like a jiffy envelope. She said, "Okay, I'll just leave it here and I'll deal with that later. I'll take it somewhere later." It was only a few hours later that she had already completely realised that she desperately wanted to keep that outfit. That was so precious. I've still got the blanket that Alfie was wrapped in. haven't washed it. It still smells of him in my drawer with his ashes at home. So, you know, those things are so precious, and you might just not realise at that point that you desperately will want that later. So you can do incredible work for your families. Thank you all for being here and the work that you already do and will do with your families. Yeah. Thank you.